Hello and welcome to another episode of Thoughts Shared Souls Bared. I am Katie.
And I'm Jill.
And today we're going to be talking all about plays. Now, typically, Jill and I are very much musical theater people. We love a good Broadway show tune.
I love a good dance number.
Love tap. Tap, yes. We love.
I miss tap.
Yes, I so much do too. But I also love a good straight play. I find them to be really refreshing and brilliant and even tear-jerking. Yes. I cried the last 20 minutes of To Kill a Mockingbird. That could also have been because
I have no attachment to Kill a Mockingbird.
It could be because I took a red eye from California to New York, immediately dropped my stuff off at the hotel. I don't sleep well on planes, or at all, really. Like, especially in any moving vehicle, do not sleep well.
Same.
And then I had a standing room only ticket. So then I proceeded to stand for 2.5 hours. But at the end, tears, sobbing, crying.
Valid.
And
I mean, it's an emotional story, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not the only person that did.
Oh, I'm positive I wasn't. It was also so cold. That's like the coldest I've ever been, was on that trip. Like I think before that trip, the coldest I'd ever been in was probably like 25, 30 degrees. And then there was a day on that trip where the high was 15. And that's 25, 30 degrees at night. Like that's a low of 25, 30.
Yeah.
So when the high is 15 on one day,
especially in New York.
Yeah.
Especially in New York, yeah.
That was a cold night.
Especially in Manhattan, because it's an island. Like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So Jill, what is your history with plays? What are some you love? Because you read more plays than I do.
I love
which
reading
is
plays.
More than zero. Because I don't read plays.
Yeah.
Or musicals for that matter.
I love reading both. I'm developing a hefty collection of plays and musical librettos because they make me happy. I love seeing them on my bookshelves. But I don't know, like I auditioned for a couple of plays in my life. Obviously I never got any because I'm a dancer first, an actor second, and a singer third. So like I always was more of like a dancer than anything else. So I never really got any plays or musicals. But I never really paid as much attention to plays until I got to college, because my school does a musical every other year. So, because we're not really a big musical theater program, but we have a really nice just theater program.
Sorry, in your high school or in your college?
In my college.
Oh, okay.
In high school, we did a musical every year. Because my high school, we had a really great theater program despite us being insanely underfunded because we didn't really have a drama program. We just had, my French teacher was our like director for all the shows, and she was like the drama club teacher, and then the English department was like the choreographers and like that kind of thing. So like we were severely underfunded in high school, but we put on amazing productions, so that was really nice. But in college,
I think my high school was the same way. We did several plays throughout the year, but we only did one musical.
Mm-hmm. We did one play, one musical every year. So we did a play in the fall and then a spring musical. And then I got to college and we do a musical every other year. So my freshman year, we did Oklahoma, which I didn't get to see because it was a weekend that I had like a ton of homework to do, so I didn't get to see it. And I wasn't in the theater department yet. Like I wasn't a theater minor at that point yet. But then we were supposed to do Year in Town last semester, which I wasn't too thrilled about. but I wasn't a part of the production anyways. But now I'm not entirely sure what's going on with next semester. I don't know if we've moved year in town virtual. I don't know what's going on. No one really knows yet because it's still all up in the air technically. So we do a lot of plays. I've watched a lot of plays since getting to college, and like I got to do an acting class, so I got to like perform a lot of things, and that was really nice. So I don't know, I kind of have a weird thing with plays where I love reading them and I love like casting myself in them when I read them. So I tend to read plays where I can be cast in them. So like plays where I could find like a new dream role for myself. But I love reading a play. There's just something about like sitting, because it only takes like an hour to read. And so it's an easy thing to do. Like it's just an easy, simple read. And I like that. Because I'm not 12 anymore. I don't take books everywhere I go with me anymore. So I love just sitting down and reading a play, like taking an hour and just reading it and doing nothing else. That's always really nice.
And do you find it easier to read than like a typical book?
Yes. Because it's when I'm reading, I'm very picky about books. Growing up, I read anything and everything, but now as an adult, like it's harder to get my attention for a long period of time because I'm so scatterbrained and I always have like a million things going on. But with plays, it's like you have that chaos in one like thing. So it's like you're reading where like a lot of times I'll read a play and I'll like pick a character and I'll like read most of that in my head, like in my head as that character. But then the other ones I'm kind of just like reading through. And so I love like there's a lot of ways that you can read a play because I know I have a friend that when she reads plays, she'll pick the character that she wants to play and she'll read those parts out loud and then just read the rest of it in her head, which I do that a lot of times as well. Just because it's like, I don't know, it's a different way of doing things. With like a book, you can't do that. It's mostly narration. But like with a play, you have pretty much all dialogue, which is something that I enjoy.
I feel like, I don't know,
it's also so easier to visualize, I think.
Because of the stage directions and the setting and how it tells you.
Yeah, like it's easier just to visualize it. Exactly. But like when you're reading a book, narration doesn't really do much for me.
Yeah. I so desperately want to be the kind of person who can just like pick up a play and read it and then enjoy. But yeah. I'm just not, like, it's so hard for me to read books in general. Like right now I'm reading Jasmine Guillory's The Wedding Date or The Wedding Party. This is the third in this series, I think. I already read The Wedding Date and The Proposal, and that's The Wedding Party, and then there's another one. Anyway, it's like, and I read the first two just like so quickly, and this one I'm just like slogging through, partially just because of like where my like mental state is at right now, because this whole back half of the year has been really tough on me. But I so desperately want to be the kind of person who can just like pick up a play and read it. I would. And recently I've subscribed to BroadwayHD so that I can watch plays. I love
BroadwayHD, yeah.
I find it, but the thing is, I don't know if you've had this same issue as well, or if this is just something, the act of going to a theater is so vastly different than watching something on BroadwayHD.
Yeah.
I find that when I'm watching something on BroadwayHD, because I have the remote and I know there are more options, I am more inclined to just like switch to whatever's next. If there's like a part that I'm finding boring. So like, for example, the very first play I ever saw off Broadway was The Portuguese Kid, starring Jason Alexander, Sherry Renee Scott, Mary Testa. They filmed that and they put it on BroadwayHD. I saw this show. This is a show that I was in the front row because I somehow got like student discount tickets by like lying and saying I was still in high school, I was still in college, which still do. Anybody get a discount? We're students of the world. And
Yeah.
and also I had just graduated. Anyway,
Wasn't a complete lie.
yeah, no, it wasn't a complete lie. I sat there and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a play in New York too. Like I've seen plays here in LA,
Yeah.
but it was the first time I'd ever seen a play in New York. And it was with like Jason Alexander, who I grew up watching on Seinfeld. And so I would, being there, it's
Right.
more likely to capture my attention. And then the idea of like theater etiquette of like your phone is away, you are focused, you're paying respect to these actors and the audience around you. Whereas when I'm watching
And
it
it's
from
so
home,
hard to do that.
yes. And at home, it is so hard to do that because it's like I'll just be like scrolling through Instagram while I watch something. Like the one I'll watch for whatever reason, the one I'll watch over and over again is Indecent, which is like a bummer of a show, but I love it.
I haven't actually watched it, but it's been on my watch list on Broadway HD for ages.
I watched it when they put it on PBS, when they aired it on PBS years ago, and then it toured and came to LA 2 years ago. No, a year and a half ago. So Indecent, I watched it the first time I saw it was when they did it on PBS, and I was like, okay, sure. And then so then it toured and it came to LA a year and a half ago, and I saw it with my friend Marcy, and we were both blown away by it. And obviously being there in the theater with other people, it's a different kind of energy. And then I rewatched it a couple weeks ago and I'm like, yeah, I'm still really into this. But then there are other shows where like I tried to watch The Portuguese Kid and I'm like, I couldn't do it for whatever reason.
Oh. Yeah.
But then I think about, there are other plays that I'm like, I guess the kind of plays that I like are ones that, I don't know, they'd have a different feel. I like ones with a lot more movement. So I saw A Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and the way that is staged, and it has a lot more movement to it, and it's choreographed.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, and it was fast paced, and it kept up with my brain. Like I was able to pay attention to it for long periods of time, and I was like, perfect, love it. And then there's a show like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which also has a lot of movement, and that's the show I saw at the beginning of the year. I drove to San Francisco to see that show, and I saw it with my friend Olivia, and watching it, it was like blink and it's over. It didn't feel like your typical play because it had magic and it had movement and it had choreography, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think on Broadway HD, they have, I'm not sure if it's still on there because it's been a while since I watched it, but they had it for free for a while. Pipeline. Did you watch that, or have you seen it?
I'm not sure what Pipeline is. I don't know nearly enough about plays as I should. I really wanted to like.
Well, this one I had never heard of. Plays. Yeah, I had never heard of this one until they announced that it was gonna be like free on Broadway HD for a while, and I was like, okay, like it'll be on there, so I'll watch it. And it's about this woman who is a teacher. I think she's a high school teacher. And it's basically about like the struggles of inner city public schools versus like inner city private schools, or like inner city kids going to private schools. And so it's very much like a discussion on like Black Lives Matter and
the school to prison pipeline.
Thank you.
Is that why it's called Pipeline?
Thank you. Yeah, edit out my idiocy.
Okay.
I'm so scatterbrained and I'm so tired. But yeah, so it's about the school to prison pipeline, and it was so good. Like it was honestly a lot, like how you said you have the issue where like you'll be like on your phone or something like that like during it. I didn't have that problem with this show. There wasn't a lot of movement to it, but it was so like, it's mostly monologues. Like it's mostly this one character just talking. And it was so interesting because it felt more like I was watching like a lecture than anything else. And so it was really, really interesting. Like it was actually really, really good. And it was good information to have, good like education for me. So it was good. I recommend it.
I remember when I was either in the 7th or 8th grade. I want to say 8th grade, but I truly don't know. It was one of the two. We, as a class, took a trip to, I don't know, some local college, I think. And we saw Diary of Anne Frank. And
God.
yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. It was like the play of it. And
right.
And I remember it's such a weird thing to see with a bunch of 13, 14-year-olds tackling something
That's
like
something
that.
that like that's a lot to wrap your head around. Like stuff like that is a lot to wrap your head around when you're given it in a situation, like in a scenario like that. Like when I was younger, like we took a trip to DC. I think it was like 8, and we took a trip to DC, and my mom was like thinking about doing the Holocaust Museum, but then she was like, no, because she's like, our youngest is 8, and that's like not something that's going to be beneficial for her, because it's like that's a lot of information coming at you. That's a lot to wrap your head around at that age. And so it's like, I think stuff like that is really more beneficial for younger kids and younger people to learn over time, like not throwing all this information at them, because that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of heavy stuff. And so I think it's honestly detrimental to teach it all at once. I think it's something you need to teach over time.
Yeah.
And also teach it correctly, because that can also be dangerous.
Yeah. And I think, so I'm assuming that we were in 8th grade. And so by then we'd already touched on World War II and the Holocaust. And so we went to this play, and I remember we were there with a bunch of other schools. And for whatever reason, the other schools were not taught like manners essentially in a theater, which, I mean, I have and I know a lot of people have like differing thoughts on theater etiquette, but like there were I just remember after the show, somebody came out. I do not remember who it was. I don't remember if it was an actor or a stage manager or what, and essentially said, hey, when you are in a show or when you're in an audience, you have to be respectful, especially when something is. But then I think afterwards he like went to our school, like went to like one of our teachers and was like, hey, your school is actually not the one doing it. We just had to tell everyone, because it's not bad information to have. Anyway, kind of like reprimanded the audience for the way they acted. It was weird. So weird.
I experienced something similar. I saw the national tour of Rent when I was in high school. That was my first time seeing Rent. I had like the worst seats on the planet, but like I paid for the tickets on my own. And so like I was excited to be there. But then this like school group sat in front of us. Don't take a group of children who don't know how to act in a theater to see a show. Teach them how to do it and then take them to a show, because it was so infuriating. Like it was absolutely horrendous.
The thing is, yes, but at the same time, it's like when in a different kind of vein, having a reaction as an audience is different than being disruptive. You know?
Oh no, they were being disruptive. Right, but I'm talking about like they were talking and texting and being annoying like the entire time, like not paying attention to the show at all. So it wasn't even like.
I once had somebody answer the phone during a show, like sitting in front of me during a musical number. I don't remember if this was at Anastasia or at Aladdin. It was one of the two. And the only reason it was, and because I saw those shows in the same week. And so
yeah,
it was like, and I remember where I was sitting in the house. Like I remember I was like house right. But I remember the person was like in front of me, and they like straight up answered the phone during a musical number. And I'm like, and they're like, I'm at a performance. And I'm like, just don't answer your phone.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh my God, I hate that. Anyways, back to plays.
So what are some of your favorite plays that you have seen, or what are memorable ones, I should say?
I saw, let's see. One of my favorite ones that I actually got to act out a scene from is the show. It's not a good play. Objectively speaking, I don't think it's great, but I really enjoyed reading it, and I really enjoyed doing the scene that I did because I got to play a character that, I don't know, I kind of related to it. I just really liked playing her. But it's called 5 Women Wearing the Same Dress, and it's about like a bridal party. Like it's about bridesmaids who like hate the bride that the bridesmaids for.
Okay.
And I believe that it takes place in like Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. But the character that I got to play is kind of like this like hardened woman. And I feel like I related a lot to her because she is very much like, I believe in love so much, but I don't believe in marriage. And like, I do believe in marriage, but at the same time, I don't believe in marriage for myself. Like, I don't think that I could ever be married to somebody. But I love love, and I firmly believe in love in every aspect of the word. Like I love love. But she essentially is like this person that just is always giving advice to people, whether it's solicited or not. She's always giving advice on like sex and love and relationships, even though she's never had a healthy one in her life. And so I really relate to her because I feel like that's absolutely me. Yeah, I think that's absolutely me. And so I loved playing it because it was like me, but on a whole nother level. And I always love like getting to read and like learn roles like that. I always think that's really interesting. Because my acting teacher said, she was like, it's easy to play a character that you can't relate to, but it's hard to play yourself because it's hard to like really take a deep look at yourself and really play it in a way that's disconnected from yourself. So that one was a really interesting thing I got to do. But we also did a few scenes from, the way my acting class was like the first scene that we did was a partner scene. We all did the same play, we just got different scenes from it. And it was The Butterfly Collection by Teresa Rebeck, which there's a lot of controversy surrounding Teresa Rebeck and a lot of her plays from the era that The Butterfly Collection was, because she was basically writing about women as women are, and people didn't like it. She was very feminist about it. She was very like, I'm taking charge of myself, I'm being myself, and I'm gonna write about women as they are. And there was a lot of controversy in that in the late 90s, early 2000s. But The Butterfly Collection was really, really interesting. It's essentially like this family that's kind of falling apart, like low-key completely falling apart, which I always love, like reading like messed up characters. Like, not messed up, I shouldn't say that. Like, they're characters that have turmoil, like have a lot of inner turmoil. And I love that play because the family was a mess. The son was like a writer, and his dad was a writer. His dad was like this super famous writer, and he had this assistant, and the son who was married, or in a long-term relationship, I can't remember, fell for his dad's assistant. They had an affair. And then you find out that the dad was also having an affair with the assistant. And so like it starts this whole like chaos within the family. And I played, who did I play? I'll have to go back and reread it because I can't remember if I played the assistant or the son's like partner. I can't really remember, but that was a really interesting, I really loved getting to perform that one. Granted, my partner wasn't my favorite person to work with. He was difficult. Same with my other scene partner from the 5 Women Wearing the Same Dress. She was not my favorite person to work with, and she was a theater, and she was a theater major too, so like that made it even worse. That like I was having an easier time with it was just like a whole thing. And then a more notable play was Vanya and Sonia. Oh, hold on.
Vanya, Sonia, Masha,
I'm gonna
Spike.
say it wrong.
Vanya and Sonia and Masha and
yes,
Spike.
I can't ever. I always like feel like I'm getting. Yeah, like I always feel like I'm getting like the order wrong.
That's how I feel about like Bob and Carolyn, Ted and Alice.
Yeah, like it's like so confusing. But I got to do a scene from that for my monologue, which was really fun. And that play was like not something I would normally read, just because it's more about older characters, and I tend to read things, and I like to watch things with like characters my age or a little bit older. So that one was I really enjoyed it. Like I thought it was fun, but it's also more comedic than I like. Like if I'm reading something with comedy, I like it to be a little bit darker comedy. When it comes to plays, anyways. With musicals, obviously, I love like straight up comedy, but
love a romp.
Yes.
I feel like I don't know. Vanya and Sonia, Masha, Spike. That one I feel like has a lot of like. I feel like people like that show. I feel like that one got great reviews.
Yeah. I think it won the Tony for Best Play.
I'm not sure
that it was. I can't remember. But
the first time I ever really like considered seeing plays, I was interning for Center Theater Group here in LA, and we had access to free tickets, and so in my 10 weeks there, I saw like 6 different shows and a bunch of plays. So I saw Appropriate by Brandon Jacob Jenkins, which was mind-blowing. It was great. Good.
He's a great playwright.
It was so good. And then I saw The Christians by, oh my God, I think it's Lucas Nath, which I don't remember much about that show. And then I saw Straight White Men by Young Jing Lee, which there's, again, that's a thing I saw. And then I also saw like 3 different musicals in my time there. So I saw Sound of Music, this show called Kansas City Choir Boy, which lasted about 58 minutes, and it starred Courtney Love and Todd Almond, and it was written by Todd Almond, and it made no sense, and it was insane, but it was also one of the wildest experiences I've ever had at a theater. Truly wild. And then I saw Bridges in Madison County, but that was the first time I was ever like, oh, let's see a play, and that really opened my eyes to seeing more plays. And then in college, I think I had to see a play or 2. I think I saw A Noise Within's production of Antigone, and then I saw my college's production of Claiborne Park. So, more exposure to plays. It's fun. They're great. Love it. But yeah, so that's the first time I was ever like really exposed to more plays, and I want to be the person who is well-rounded in their theater. So I want to see more plays, and I want to see different and weird kind of like immersive musicals, and I want to see opera. I want to be exposed to performance art. Like I want to have it, not have it all, but like you know what I mean? Like be a part of it. Understand.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
Be well cultured.
Yeah.
I'll say. I don't know. I can't, for whatever reason, bring myself to read plays.
I'm really excited because next semester I'm taking Survey of Drama, which is literally we're just like reading plays, and like analyzing them and like digesting them. I'm really, really, really excited about that. But I took theater aesthetics because that was like a class that you had to take for majors and minors at my school. So it's essential. I don't really know how to describe aesthetics. It's kind of like the fundamentals of theater, but like beyond what you learn in like Theater 100 type of a thing. So like it kind of goes deeper into the stuff that you learned in Theater 100. Like Theater 100 is like the basics of theater. And then like aesthetics is like going deeper and learning more about those things. And we read a few plays and like digested them and analyzed them and everything, which was super fun. But one play that we read, I have this weird obsession with it. It's not like an old one though, it's newer. I have it with me because I love rereading it. But it's Disgraced by Ayad Akhtar. And it is so fun to read because it's so short. Like it's honestly like one of the shorter ones that I have. But it's like, I love reading about couples. So like Dinner with Friends. Sorry, thank you. So like Dinner with Friends is another one of my favorite plays. But Disgraced is like these couples who end up not knowing, like these people don't know anything about each other at all. Like they thought that they did. And I love reading stuff like that. Like I always just get really invested in things like that. But Disgraced is really interesting because it talks more about like culture collision and people adapting to like a white person who's dating someone of a different race or ethnicity or culture. And the way that they kind of grasp onto their partner's culture and not necessarily appropriate it, but kind of identify with it and kind of take it as their own in a way. And I always think that that's a really interesting like psychological thing that happens that like a lot of the time. Like that's something that happens all the time. And so it discusses that a lot, which I always find really interesting. So I loved it for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for theater to come back so that I do have the opportunity to see more plays. I think the last play I saw, oh no, I don't know if that's considered a play or if it's considered a musical. Bob and Carolyn Ted and Alice by I think it was the new group that did it. There was definitely singing in it.
I didn't know much about that one.
Yeah.
Was it a play with songs?
Like how I think jukebox musicals are? I don't know, because it was Duncan Sheik that, and I don't know if it was considered a play or a musical. People, they sang, but I didn't feel like the songs carried the story.
So it's a play with songs?
Yeah, but I think they may have billed themselves as a musical, but oh well.
Who knows?
I don't. If not, then the last play I saw was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Parts 1 and 2. Which I think, regardless of everything that's happening with Harry Potter, I think that those are good shows. I don't know if they didn't need to exist, but visually and the theatrical experience around it, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But they definitely didn't need to exist.
I can't have an opinion because I don't know anything about Harry Potter. I haven't read any of the books. I saw like the Fantastic Beasts movie, like the first one, because I took my friend for her birthday present. Like I took her to see it. I didn't really pay much attention.
I only saw like the like Harry Potter movies. I only saw those. I read the books once, and then I said, I guess I'll see the play because it won the Tony.
Yeah.
I remember that year both plays that won new play and revival of a play were both two-parters. So it's like if you want to see the two Tony-winning plays, prepare to spend about 12 hours at a theater.
Right.
If you want to see them both, because
right.
Harry Potter's about 5 hours combined, and then I think isn't Angels in America like 7 or something?
It's a long like one. It's because the the book for it is about this big.
Oh my god. That's and then wild.
Like this is Frankie and Johnny the Claire Balloon. So if that, and then like Disgraced is even smaller. Like this is Disgraced and this is Frankie and Johnny the Claire Balloon. Like Disgraced
and
you've read tiny.
You've read other Brandon Jacob Jenkins plays, haven't you?
I read one. I read Gloria, which is about shooting in an office place. It was honestly terrifying to read, but it was really good. It was really well written.
How many acts was that?
Gloria's only 2.
Because Appropriate is 3. It was like you had to prepare for about 3.5 hours of theater if you were going to see that show.
Right. Right.
Or maybe not 3.5. Well, I guess with intermissions, it was like about 3.5.
The other day, I went to Half Price Books, which is where
maybe
I get a lot of plays because they're cheap there because it's Half Price Books. So this was like $3. I got Betrayal because I wanted to see this on Broadway, but I couldn't afford it. And I just like didn't get a chance to. But this book was bigger than I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, the dialogue is so spaced out. I'm like not surprised at how like thick the book is. And there's a lot of pages that are literally just like a blank page with like a year. So that also is part of it. But yeah, like it depends. I prefer reading like the acting edition of plays just because it's a lot less like a novel and it's a lot easier to get through. But like I spend a lot of time on Concord Theatricals and Dramatist Play Service and things like that to get plays. But yeah, I don't know. I like reading just about any play that I can get my hands on. Like I'm not super picky when it comes to plays. I definitely have like my preferences, but at the same time I'm not like I don't go for one thing over another.
I don't know.
What's your favorite? Hold on. What's your favorite Shakespeare play, though? I'm always interested to know what people's favorite Shakespeare play is.
I feel garbage that I don't know much Shakespeare. I think the only 4 ones that I know are Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, Hamlet, and Othello. I think those are the only ones that I like know what they're about. And then the other ones I know are through the 90s teen movie versions of them. So I know that Taming of the Shrew is 10 Things I Hate About You. And I love that movie.
Yeah.
So if I had to add that to it, I would say Taming of the Shrew. But I haven't actually read it. I just love 10 Things I Hate About You.
So I saw the National Players production of Othello because they came to my school my freshman year of college. So I got to see that, which was amazing. It was such a good production because it was very modernized, which is what I love about. So I have I'm so hypocritical when it comes to Shakespeare because I love a lot of like the ideas of Shakespearean works, but I don't like Shakespeare himself. I don't trust him. I don't believe that he actually existed. I have a lot of things that went into a research paper that I had to write.
There's a podcast I started listening to today called Our Fake History, and there's a whole episode on Shakespeare, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I heard the guy kind of talk about it on a different podcast I was listening to, and so I'll listen to it and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, perfect. Because I recently wrote a research paper about like if Shakespeare actually wrote his own works. I literally titled it "Was Shakespeare Fraud?" was very proud of that title. But I watched a lot of Shakespeare in Love while I was writing because it just got me in the mood. Because Shakespeare in that movie is very attractive. They really did that.
Who played him?
But oh God, don't ask me that. Hold on.
I know it's Gwyneth Paltrow, but I don't know who
the
guy is.
So I watched that movie when I was younger, but I'm pretty sure I watched a censored version of it. Because I was
you didn't see the part where she just like completely topless?
Right. So like the first time I watched it for the first time since I was like younger, was a couple months ago while I was writing my paper, and I was like, I don't remember seeing Gwyneth Paltrow's boobs this much. Like I was like, did I watch a censored version of this movie? And it turns out that I had. But let's see, Shakespeare in Love. Joseph Fiennes.
Sure. If you say so.
He's fine. Respectfully, he is fine. But I don't want to objectify him because he's also a very good actor, but he's very good to look at. I like looking at him. But I have this weird relationship with Romeo and Juliet. I love Romeo and Juliet. And anyone that meets me thinks it's just because I'm like basic and I'm like, oh, Romeo and Juliet. Like, no, that's not why. It's not like because it's Romeo and Juliet. I have this long-standing history with the story, and I have always just been obsessed with the story. I don't know why.
Look, if it wasn't a good story, it wouldn't have been produced so many times. It wouldn't have been adapted into so many different things. It's obviously a story that resonates with a lot of people. The idea of star-crossed lovers is very like it resonates.
Right. And so I think it's because like growing up, I watched a lot of West Side Story. And West Side Story has always been like a huge part of my life. And so I have always just been so fascinated with the story of Romeo and Juliet. In like any capacity I can get it. I will say this though, controversial. I don't like the Baz Luhrmann movie. It stresses me out. Like it gives me horrendous anxiety.
It gives me the ick.
Yeah. Like it's like, I don't like watching it. Like I don't like watching it. I'll watch pretty much any other Baz Luhrmann movie. I don't like Romeo and Juliet. But I love reimagined versions of it. Like this is
I love reimagined versions of any classic.
Right.
Hence why I love 10 Things I Hate About You.
Right. And so I love, this is such like a stupid obsession of mine. This is such a low-key obsession of mine. Like you'll only know this about me if you really, really know me and have been around me a lot. I love Romeo and Juliet. Like, you have no idea how embarrassing it is for me to admit that right now. I love that movie. I think it is so good.
Did Elton John write a song for that movie?
Elton John, yeah. Yeah. I love that movie. That movie is
I've never seen it.
So good for no reason. It is so good I didn't see Sherlock Gnomes. I had no interest in it because I was like, nothing.
Is that the same universe?
Yeah, it's just sequel.
Did they try to make them like the Minions? They're like, we're gonna have a Gnome universe. Or like the Trolls.
Yeah, but like the Gnome universe should have been so much more popular than the Minions because it's so good. But Romeo and Juliet, the cast is stacked. The music is so good. Like everything about it is so like that movie has zero right being as good as it is for an animated movie about gnomes. Like it's so good. I love it. But I love like any version of Romeo and Juliet that I can get. Like so much so that I was at Half Price Books today looking for Gossip Girl on DVD. And I went over to the drama section, which I always do when I go there. And I was looking for like any plays. I almost picked up Lobby Hero because I've been meaning to read it. I just like, but then I didn't get it because I saw this other thing I wanted more. But so like I was going through the drama section and I saw this book and I picked it up just because like It's way over there. I was gonna grab it, but it's way over there. The title was interesting. I always see anything that says the word love, and I'm like, what is this? I was like, what is this? And so I grabbed it and I looked at the cover, and the cover was Romeo and Juliet. So I was like, I have to buy this. I don't care what it is. I have to get it. And then it's like, it ended up being like a book about, like a poem book about love. Like, it's just all these poems about love. And I was like, I have to have this. So it's just like timeless love poems, like from Shakespeare and other people. Like, it's just so many different poets.
That's cute. Have you
that
seen
wrote about love? And I was like, this is fun.
Have you seen the Sex and the City movie?
Yeah.
Is that the same book that like Big gets all of his letters from? The emails he sends Carrie?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna go rewatch it now. I'm gonna rewatch it and I'm gonna see if it is, because that would actually be really funny if it was. But yeah, so I have this weird relationship with Shakespearean works where I don't believe in Shakespeare. I don't believe that Shakespeare existed. I don't trust it. But I love so much of the adaptations of his work. I love so much of the universes that were built in his plays.
The royal his, because you're still not entirely sure it was the one person.
Right. And so like it's just a freaking crazy mess. But it's always so funny because so I don't believe Shakespeare existed, but I love like Christopher Marlowe. I love like a lot of the people that were in the same era as him. And so I firmly believe there's a lot of theories about who actually wrote Shakespeare's works. I think it was a lot of different people that wrote these plays. I don't know if I trust that theory.
Okay.
I don't know. That theory is kind of weird to me. I don't know. I didn't write a whole lot about it because it was just, I read a lot about it and then I was like, I don't trust this. Like I was like, I feel like this person's just trying to get a payday. I don't trust it. But I love the Christopher Marlowe theory and the Edward de Vere theory. But the Edward de Vere theory, I don't think holds up because the timeline is messy. But I think it would be interesting. I want to watch the movie about Edward de Vere. I can't remember what the movie is called, but it's literally about like him having written all the Shakespeare stuff. So I need to watch that. But
I need to get into Shakespeare.
Shakespeare is so fun to like learn about.
Yeah, see, the thing is, I feel like with plays, I'm so much more interested in like the history of them and like the history of theater than I am into like, I think I love the history of theater
the plays
more
themselves.
Like, almost more than I love the plays themselves.
Yeah, like I'm kind of the same way where I just like, I love learning all about the history of it all, which is why in my theater history class, I took the wrong theater history class and I didn't realize until it was too late. Because I took the one that's like up until like 1816 or something like that, and I meant to take the one that's like 1800s on, and so I took the one with like all the stuff I didn't care about. I was like, I hate this. But we did get to talk about like Shakespeare in England and Elizabethan England and all that stuff, so that was nice. But yeah, no, like I highly recommend like learning more about Shakespeare, because, or not even just Shakespeare, but like the Shakespearean era of theater, because it's all very, very interesting. So
gonna have to do that.
Rewatch Shakespeare in Love if you have to. So good. Yeah. It's actually a really good movie. I actually really love it. I've seen it like 8 times in the last 3 months and I'm obsessed with it now.
Where's it streaming?
I think I watched it on Hulu.
Oh, ooh, Hulu.
Yeah. I also found out Into the Woods is on Hulu and I lost my mind over that last night. So I watched it.
Why is it not on Disney Plus?
It's because it was on Hulu and the contract didn't end until the middle of this month. So it's being put on Disney Plus on December 18th.
Okay. Exciting things. Yeah. We love plays. We love theater. We're excited. Things are happening. because we filmed, I keep saying filmed, because we recorded 2 episodes this week. So we're recording both this week's and last week's on December 4th. So this podcast will come out after after The Grinch, The Prom,
Katie's making me watch The Grinch, everybody. That's
and
my biggest issue.
When is the NBC Night of Broadway?
That's also next week. So
oh my goodness.
post.
So all of these things are happening. So we'll talk about those next week. So yeah. Fun things, exciting things, all wrap up. So please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, in case anybody doesn't know, there is a video portion of this podcast available on YouTube, but you can always listen. We love our listeners. We're very excited. Jill, where can people find us?
On Instagram and TikTok, we are at Thoughts Shared Podcast. On Twitter, we are at ThoughtsShared_.
And if you'd like to follow me, I am on TikTok at KatieFornia, and then I am on Instagram at Complete Katie.
And I am at It's Jill Hayes on all platforms, every social media.
Yeah. So catch us next week when we talk about all of the things about everything. The media, all of the media that's been released. We have the Grinch. We have the Grinch. We have NBC's Night of Broadway, and we have The Prom. We might just make The Prom its own podcast, actually.
Honestly, I think we should, because we have enough opinions about it without having seen it.
I mean, I've seen the musical. I loved the musical. So.
No, I mean, without having seen the movie. We have enough opinions about it without having seen the movie.
That's true. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and you'll hear us next week. Goodbye.
Bye.